Hello everyone, and welcome to the second video that I'm doing on the Deep Dark Experimental Snapshot. On the day of its release, I'd scheduled some time off and I was completely oblivious to the hints that the devs were dropping on Twitter. So I didn't find out about this snapshot until late in the day. I stayed up till like 1 in the morning recording and editing, and I didn't have time to put everything I wanted to into this video. For example, I wanted to go over the structures of the ancient city one by one, which we're going to do in this video. We're also going to talk about the theory that this might be a portal to another dimension. I'd also like to make it really clear again that this is an experimental snapshot, meaning it's not officially supported in any capacity. It's here for the devs to get your feedback, and they're looking for it. Here on the feedback website, they've got a bunch of questions and you can leave comments and give them your thoughts. So you'll find a link to that in the description box down below. So first of all, let's go over some things that I missed. For example, I failed to mention that when you break these blocks without Silk Touch, they drop XP, right? There's no XP here though. Yeah, it turns out this only happens if the blocks are naturally created. If you place them down in creative mode, they don't drop XP. And if you're yet to realise the significance of that, it's because we can generate these blocks with the Sculk Catalyst, meaning that this is also an XP farm. Or maybe we should call it an XP battery, because until these blocks are harvested, that XP is just waiting there, sitting around. And when it comes to replacing blocks, there are quite a few types that it can do. All of these ones, and then both types of nylium, every type of terracotta, dirt, and stone. For example, diorite and andesite, and whatever is listed as stone in the nether, which I think is just blackstone. And I have obtained that information from the new tags that were added in this snapshot, and they are written on the screen if that happens to be useful to you. When it comes to the Swift Sneak enchantment, I now have clarification for exactly what's going on. This is your crouching speed in blocks per second, and this is the walking speed in blocks per second. What the enchantment does is it decreases that debuff by 25% for the first level, 50% for the second, and for the third it's 75%. And I got a lot of comments saying that there's already quite a few enchantments for boots, and maybe it'd be better to put these on the leggings. And I got to agree, I think that's a fantastic idea. I had commented on how I didn't see any hostile mobs spawning in the ancient city. Turns out that's a feature of the Deep Dark biome, which we're currently in. However, it is possible for the ancient city to generate into different biomes, like this right here is actually dripstone caves. So this means when you find the little blobs of the deep dark inside of other areas, mobs don't actually spawn in those patches. And when it comes to advancements, I'm sure there'll be some new ones in the future, but there was one change and it was to adventuring time, and it now includes the deep dark biome. Now when it comes to reinforced Deepslate, I commented on how this was blast resistant, but it's actually even more blast resistant than you might think, because the Wither is able to break certain blocks, and it does that when it sends out its blue skull projectiles. So here is another TNT blast resistant block, the Ancient Debris, and you can see that when those blue skulls are launched out, it actually blows up. And if you haven't seen it, over on Ilmango's channel, he's built a movable wither cage with this new block, which is pretty sensational. There is a lot that you could do in this game with a movable wither inside of a cage. So what about the Sculk Shrieker? Well, one thing that might not be clear is that you need the Sculk sensor to activate it, so you can make a bunch of sound around it, but you can also activate it with a redstone signal. Look at that. And it's also described that this block has 3 levels of alertness, meaning you need to activate it 3 times to summon the Warden. And I did some testing with this, and it turns out it's true, but only once per world, and not per block either. So when you're first in a world, you can set the Shrieker off 3 times and then it will summon the Warden, but then any Shrieker in the world will set it off the first time after that. And so it's a world mechanic that I think should be switched to a per block mechanic. On the right hand side, I felt like there should be some data saying how many times this had been activated, but it wasn't so. And it should also be noted that this thing has about a 7-second cooldown after you use it. So you'll see it doesn't get activated again for quite some time. And to add to the confusion, there is also a new command called Warden Spawn Tracker. However, its feedback doesn't really let you know exactly what's going on, and there was no documentation with this. And that leads us on to the Warden mob, which, did you know, is now the tallest mob in the game. It's taller than the Iron Golem and the Enderman. Before we continue any further with this video, I just wanted to butt in and say, if you're enjoying it and you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button if you like this kind of content, and you'll get more of it from me real soon. Anyway, on with the video. And oddly enough, this is its hitbox. You can see that it's slightly taller than where you can hit the Warden, and wider too, so you can't punch it in its arms. Now that gave me the idea to use the barrier block to summon the Warden in, but unfortunately it doesn't come into the world on barrier blocks. But the idea there was to give us a fuller view of the animation of the Warden coming up out of the ground. Very cool. There is, however, this, which will lead to a little hilarity. That's the Warden burrowing back under animation. I don't know why it does that one. Let's summon it with the bat flying, though. Look at that. This game can be quite ridiculous sometimes. We can also flip the Warden upside down with a name tag. But the name tag has another property, which is stopping mobs from disappearing, and the Warden will actually burrow back under the ground even if it has been given a name tag. And this means we can also flip the burrowing animation. Again, looking very odd. Now on to some more serious information about the Warden. The only biome it can be summoned in is the Deep Dark. We're in the desert here, so it'll never be able to be summoned to this spot, and we're not in peaceful mode, as you can see. Of course, I can summon the Warden with a spawn egg, though. But first of all, if I hold the Bone of Health, I'll be able to get my hearts up. So what I neglected to test last time was how hard the Warden can hit us. So we'll wait for it to attack, and 22.5 hearts of damage, which is absolutely insane. And of course, that's while I had no armor on whatsoever. So you can see why I needed the extra health, because otherwise it would just kill me in one go. Anyway, I'm just going to use my brain smarts here and drink a potion of invisibility, because then, you know, the Warden won't be able to see me, right? Then again, the Warden is blind. It sniffs me out, so a potion of invisibility is completely useless here. And last of all, the parrot has the ability to imitate the Warden, if it doesn't aggravate it first, of course. The next thing we're going to take a closer look at is the Sculk Catalyst, and I've thrown together this time-lapse quickly. It's of creepers dropping down and creating XP right next to the catalyst itself, which causes the charges to spread out and look for blocks it can convert to Sculk to. Obviously this has been sped up quite a lot, and we're going to take a closer look at some of the details here in just a moment. But just a quick observation here, we can see not only has it created blocks and veins, this also creates sensors and shriekers. So these charges that you see here will eventually decay, and if there are no other blocks nearby when it does that, it has a 1 in 10 chance of becoming a Shrieker and a 9 in 10 chance of becoming a sensor. Just stepping back and looking at the amount of blocks of each, that seems to be pretty accurate to what we can observe. And there is supposed to be a range limit to this, so let's set this thing into overdrive and see what happens. And I did say we were going to go look at the original time-lapse again, but since we're doing this, I can kind of have a closer look at the charges here. You can see that it sort of pick random directions, and eventually what they're going to do is make their way over to the edge. Now the reason that they spread out so much like this is because as the mobs are dying and XP is accumulating, the charge holds more and more ability for the amount of XP that it's got stored in it, which is why it's going absolutely ham over here at the moment. That distance was supposed to be 24 blocks, and well over 24 blocks we have these sensors generating back here, so I don't know where that comes from. There may be a limit, but it's not 24 blocks. And last of all, I should mention that the Sculk Catalyst block itself emits light at a light level of 6. So next up, we're going to look at all of the structure files that make up the ancient city. These first two are the two halves of the city entrance, which we've seen at every single one of these ancient cities we've visited. Then this structure is simply known as the city center, and that's followed by a series of city walls. This one right here is known as bottom, and it's got an interesting little detail in it. There's actually Sculk sensors that are waterlogged right below there. I don't know why they're waterlogged, but you can see that they activate the lamps when they are activated. And then these are all of the city walls, which come in various shapes and configurations and corners too. These are the layouts of lots of deep stone and also wall blocks. Then we have the structures, of which there are several types. This one right here is known as the barracks. You can see it's got 2 loot chests, and when we've seen these in the game, there are obviously Sculk infestations, and these are actually created by these jigsaw blocks, which I think have a chance to essentially create a bunch of Sculk here. Oh, and looky what I found. It's another one of those miniature statues, which is totally not a portal. And also a rare and valuable item you can find right here. Skeleton skulls are obtainable inside of these structures. These next three are simply known as chambers. All of them have a jigsaw block for the Sculk and also a chest with loot inside of it. Then we have the large pillar, which is similar to what we've seen at the city entrance, and then the large ruins, which does not have a lot of blocks at all. Then we have a medium pillar and two sets of medium ruins. Then we got a very large structure right here. Can you guess the name of it? It's got two water pools. It's actually called the sauna, which I thought was rather interesting. You know, there's now saunas in Minecraft officially. Now this is where some of the portal theory starts to come to life. This is known as small portal statue. And what does it look like? You guessed it, it's blatantly a miniaturized version of this, and it calls itself a portal, even though this one doesn't. After that, we have some small ruins, and then we have a whole bunch of walls right here in different shapes and designs. These are the ones that extend further out from the center of the city. And that, my friends, is all of the structures. So now let's move on to the portal theory. So I've seen this theory in a lot of my comments, and it seems really popular because a lot of you like the idea of the Deep Dark actually being another dimension. I believe there's also a mod out there that has another dimension called the Deep Dark, so a lot of you are probably making that connection. The only really strong link that we have for that theory is the name of this, small portal statue. Now the problem with that is that it also refers to the word statue. And what does this right here look like to you? Does it perhaps look a little bit like this fella? Now the Warden has been through many different iterations, and it's perhaps one of these early designs that it's more based on, which leads me to believe that this is a statue more so than it is a portal. But of course the Warden is yet to drop any type of item, and maybe, just maybe, it would be a flint and steel to light this thing up. Not an actual flint and steel, just some sort of new item that does the same sort of thing. And similar to the blast resistant properties and wither resistant properties of this block is the end portal frame, so it shares some similarities with another block that takes you to another dimension. But at this point in time it really is just speculation, and the Deep Dark has been a work in progress for a very long time now, which might lead some of you to think that they've been secretly working on another dimension. However, we really don't know, and I think it's best probably not to put any extra pressure on them considering how much time they've spent putting this update together. So I guess I'll leave this one with you. What do you think? Is it going to be a portal to another dimension, or are we getting too excited about a giant statue? So that brings us to the end of the video, and if you want to keep watching some more content from me, YouTube reckons that you'll like one of these videos on the screen, so give it a click and leave the video a like if you want to. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon with another one. Bye bye.